The Royal Navy on a training exercise, but the dangers are all too real. The Prime Minister says we're in a new era of threats that requires a different order of response.
Every part of society, every citizen of this country has a role to play, because we have to recognise that things have changed. The threat we now face is more serious, more immediate, and more unpredictable than at any time since the Cold War.
But not so urgent that he's willing to turn an ambition for defence spending to increase to 3% of national income by the next Parliament into a firm commitment. It was a weak spot pounced on by his opponents.
The language around the government's announcements is definitely not firm enough. We need to get to 3% by the end of this Parliament. The world is getting more and more dangerous, and a lot of the things which they've announced in this strategic defence review require money.
The funding row slightly overshadowed the unveiling of what's meant to be a key piece of work. This review is 140 pages long, containing warnings and solutions. One part describes the potential effects of war on the UK's way of life. This includes attacks on the armed forces in the UK and on overseas bases, air and missile attacks using long-range drones, cruise and ballistic missiles, targeting military infrastructure and critical national infrastructure, and increased sabotage and cyber attacks. On the state of UK defence, the review says its wider ways of working remain suited to a peacetime era, with innovation stifled and bureaucracy consuming precious time and effort. The result is an organisation that's not currently optimised for warfare against a peer military state. It made recommendations, though, saying, with rapid advances in technology driving the greatest change in how wars fought for more than a century, the UK must pivot to a new way of war. The team that led this review say it's about so much more than rebuilding the armed forces. It's about transforming the mindset of the country so that everyone is prepared for war. One of the reviewers described this as the most profound change to UK defence in 150 years. Whether or not that's the case, though, depends on what the government and all of us do next. And that could require tough choices.
We'd like to spend our money on the things we want, health and welfare and education, and have our potholes filled in. And the idea that you'd spend more money on defence isn't an easy one. But the fact is, if you don't spend enough money on defence, then many of those other things become irrelevant.
Being prepared was second nature during the Cold War. But is the UK willing once again to return to a war footing? Deborah Haynes, Sky News.